Hello, this is Mr. Stansbury. I'm going to take you through the adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. At the end of this, you should be able to say I can add and subtract algebraic fractions by finding common denominators. All right, first example, write as a single fraction. We have 7 minus 4 over x. So what we got to do is we got to get common denominators. So this has got an x, so this one over here is going to also need an x. So we can multiply that by x over x. And that's really the same thing as 7 over 1, right? So if we multiply that, we get 7x minus 4, and those are both over x. So we just end up with 7x minus 4 over x. And that is now a single fraction because there's only one denominator there, even though the numerator has two terms in it. Okay? B, 5 over x plus x over 5. So let's look at find what the common denominator is, which we did over here as well. Common denominator over here was x. Common denominator over here, we have an x and we have a 5. So let's write that as, instead of x times 5, let's write it as 5x. So now we just have over here on each of the fractions, we have to figure out which part of the denominator it's missing. So it's got the x, but it needs the 5, so we have to multiply the top and the bottom by 5 to get the common denominator. Over here, it's missing the x, so we have to multiply the top and the bottom by x to get the common denominator. So the left one over here, we have 5 times 5 is 25 over 5x. And then we have plus x times x is x squared over 5x. So the denominator is the same, so we just combine write the numerator as one, well, it's still two terms, but we write it together as 25 plus x squared all over 5x. And that is written as a single fraction. All right, x plus 4 over 2 minus x plus 1 over x. Common denominator, we need to have a 2 and an x. So this has the 2 over here, it's missing the x, so we've got to multiply top and bottom by x, right? Really looks like that. And then over here, we've got the x, but we need the 2, so we got to multiply the top and the bottom by 2. Now we're going to multiply both parts here by that x and both parts over here by the 2. So this one here, we have x times x is x squared plus 4x all over x times 2. We'll call that 2x. And then we're going to subtract 2 times x is 2x plus 2 times 1 is 2 all over x. Okay, so probably our best bet here is just to distribute this negative to both of those. So we have x squared plus 4x over 2x. And then we have, let's put plus, and then we have negative 2x minus 2 all over, oops, that's not x, but 2x. Right? And then now we can combine the like terms in the numerator and write it all over 2x, the common denominator. So we get x squared, 4x minus 2x is plus 2x, and then we have a minus 2. And there's our, excuse me, two fractions written as a single fraction now. Okay, let's take a look at the next three examples. All right, write as a single fraction still. We have 2 plus 3 over x plus 5. So, same idea. We still have we need to find the common denominator. This is over 1, so 1 times anything isn't going to change anything, so we just leave the 1 off. So we need to have both of them to have an x plus 5. Okay, so this over here does not have the x or the plus 5, so we have to multiply top and bottom by x plus 5. Kind of hard to fit that in there, but we'll make do. And then this one over here is got the common denominator over here, so we don't have to multiply that by anything. Okay, so over here, 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 5 is 10. All over x plus 5 times 1 is simply x plus 5. And then that's plus 3 over x plus 5. Not 3, but 5. And then now we just collect like terms in the top. So 2x plus 15 on the top over x plus 5. That is now written as one single fraction. All right. Now, this over here, common denominator, This one over here has an x minus 1, and then this one has an x. Now, x minus 1, that's its own denominator right there. It also has to have an x. Even though you see this x here, that x minus 1 and this x, those are different. So we have to have an x times x minus 1 as our common denominator. Okay? So this one over here, we have x minus 1. We got to multiply by x over x to get the common denominator of x times x minus 1. And then over here, it's missing the x minus 1 and the x minus 1. All right? So, again, hopefully to simplify this here, if you've got x minus 1, you got two terms in a denominator, you got to keep those two things together and just like basically put parentheses around that and consider that its own term. So x minus 1 is a term. Since that's not exactly x minus 1, then we would have to include that also for the x also for our common denominator. Okay, these are kind of trickier ones, but we'll work on those and get the hang of it. All right, so top multiplies 4 times x is 4x. Bottom is x times x minus 1, and we can just leave it as x times x minus 1, which is our common denominator there. And then minus 5, got to distribute that 5 through, so 5 times x is 5x minus 5, right? And it's subtracting that whole thing all over x times x minus 1. And remember, when you're subtracting, you've got a fraction subtract, like, do you have a negative fraction? Let's say over here, you only just need to distribute the negative to either the numerator or the denominator. Usually easiest to distribute it through the numerator. Okay, so let's simplify that. So we have 4x minus 5x, negative times a negative is plus 5, all over our common denominator, which is x times x minus 1. And then 4x minus 5x gives us negative x plus 5, all over x times x minus 1 is our final simplified writing as a single fraction. Okay, and then this last one here, common denominator, is going to be, I'll just put parentheses around that to make this hopefully a little bit easier. X minus 3 is one of our denominators here, and then we have x plus 2. Again, they both share an x, but think of this as a term and think of this as a term, so we need both of those in there. We need x minus 3 and x plus 2 as our common denominator. So this one over here is missing the x plus 2. So we got to multiply by x plus 2 over x plus 2. This over here is missing the x minus 3 and the x minus 3. So we got to multiply top and bottom by those. So this here, we're going to look, actually have to FOIL this one out. So x times 2x is 2x squared. X times 1 is plus 1x, or just x. 2 times 2x, the inside is 4x. And then 2 times 1 is 2. All over our common denominator. You do not have to multiply that out. We can just write it as x plus 2, x minus 3. And then this one over here, 3x times x. So this is plus. We got 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x. All over the same common denominator, the x plus 2 and x minus 3. All right, and then now we can just collect like terms in the numerator, and then away we go. 2x squared and 3x squared is 5x squared. X and 4x is 5x, but then we subtract 9x, and that gives us negative 4x. And then we just have the plus 2 all over our x plus 2 and x minus 3. And we can just leave it like that. All right? Okay, that's adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. If you have any further questions on this, please feel free to ask in class. Thanks.